In this episode 12, I'm going to talk to you about how I overthink and it can be paralyzing. Overthinking sucks. So if you struggle with overthinking, this podcast episode is definitely for you. Here we go. Welcome to the Depression Talks podcast. My name is Emmanuel. I'm a YouTube creator and certified life coach dedicated to changing the mental health stigma. On this podcast, we openly talk about depression, anxiety, and low self-esteem, but you'll also hear some coaching tips that has helped many people take action and transform their lives. No matter what you're going through, I promise you are not alone. First off, I want to let you know that I'm going to be going a different direction in terms of this podcast because I've gotten and read a lot of your comments on my YouTube channel, a lot of your DMs on Instagram, and I could not agree more with what I was hearing. And a lot of you want to hear me talk more about my personal bipolar depression, my personal journey in terms of how I feel, in terms of how I deal with overthinking and my depression and my sadness and despair and positives and negatives. So I'm going to be talking more and more about what I'm going through and how I feel and how I'm trying to get through this thing called life. So if you're ready for it, here we go. I struggle a lot with overthinking. I'm overthinking right now as I'm making and shooting this podcast episode, if I'm going to be honest with you. I always doubt myself. I'm always struggling with questioning, is this a good idea? Is this going to work out? Is this going to play out how I want it to? Are people going to like it? Are people going to hate it? And I overthink. And then after I've created this, what was an awesome idea, I trash it with all these questions and all this negativity saying, nope, it's not going to be good enough. Nope, I don't think that people are going to like it. Nope, nobody's going to listen. And it goes into this spiral and it gets worse and worse and worse. What I'm realizing is that I become paralyzed. I stop taking any actions. I stop all activity. If I had an idea for shooting a video, I no longer shoot that video because I think it now is a bad idea. Last week, I didn't post a podcast episode because not only was I in one of my extreme depressed phases, but I overthought and said, no one's going to want to listen to me. No one's going to care about what I had to say. And I went to this whole entire circle of just negativity. And I overthought everything and I became paralyzed. So what I am forcing myself to do and what I challenge you to do is when you notice that you're overthinking, try anyways. When you notice that you're overthinking, take action. I am shooting this episode right now and I'm overthinking it. And I might fail and it might suck and you might have no enjoyment out of it. Or I could be wrong. You know what? I never really do. And this is actually the first time during this shooting of this podcast, this is the first time I really understand this concept is all my overthinking does not make it right. My overthinking could be incorrect thinking. I never thought of it that way before. Because usually when I overthink, I'm saying to myself, well, all these negative things could happen. Instead, I could say, yeah, all these negative things could happen, but I could be wrong. All these positive things might actually happen instead. And then let's try to overthink about that. Well, maybe people will start listening. Maybe people will start understanding what I'm trying to make. Maybe people will do this and maybe people will do that. So overall, what I'm trying to say to you is, yes, overthinking can be paralyzing. It definitely can be paralyzing for me. I'm not going to sit here and act like I'm perfect. I'm raising my hand right now, even though you can't see it. I overthink a lot. But what gets me through is understanding that I need to take action. I need to at least try. Because the outcomes is impossible to predict. But my actions and what I do, I am in control of. You still have a choice to make. I still have a choice to make. We can do nothing about it. We can lay on our backs, stay inside, and overthink everything and just think. Or we can think, but still do something about it. Tell me what you think about this type of podcast. I am very curious because I am overthinking right now and thinking that is not good enough. I'm trying to express to you currently, this very moment, what I'm going through, what's going through my mind. If I'm being honest, this is exactly what's going through my mind. This podcast episode was all over the place. Nobody really wants to listen to this podcast. Nobody cares about what I'm thinking about. Why am I doing this? Is it worth it? I'm thinking those thoughts right now, but I'm still going to post this podcast. I'm still going to put this out there in the world because I could be wrong. I love it. I did it. I shot this podcast. I put it out there in the world, and I am patting myself on the back. And I want you to pat yourself on the back every single time you take action against your paralyzation of overthinking, because it's not going to hold you back from taking action and changing your life. All right. I gotta calm down. But as always, if you are more curious about this podcast, if you want to be more involved in DT Nation, then go to YouTube and type in Depression Talks with Emmanuel. Again, Depression Talks with Emmanuel. Subscribe to the community because I make videos all the time, openly talking about depression, anxiety, and low self-esteem. But if you just love listening to the podcast, then go there and just comment down below and say, hey, I listened to the podcast and it impacted me in a positive way, because that goes a long way. That means a lot to me when I see your comments. I read every single comment, every single message, and every single email, and I would love to hear yours as well. All right, I think it's time to end the podcast. As I always say, do you stay swagalicious and keep smiling. Peace. See you in the next episode.